The sense of shock is still palpable. For the first time since the final days of August, Arsenal have felt the bitter sting of defeat, a run of 18 unbeaten games obliterated by a last-gasp dagger at Villa Park that has violently blown the Premier League title race wide open. The aftermath demands a clear-eyed autopsy, moving beyond raw emotion to understand the structural failures that led to this point. The performance was a complex puzzle of tactical missteps, individual struggles, and systemic fragilities. Exposed. From Mikel Arteta's contentious lineup decisions to the fluctuating influence of Martin Odegaard and the ongoing conundrum at centre-forward, this was a match that laid bare several key lessons. Let's break down the 5 fundamental truths we learned from Aston Villa's dramatic 2-1 victory over Arsenal. The first and most critical lesson revolves around a significant tactical miscalculation from the dugout. In a game ultimately decided by the finest margins, the initial setup placed Arsenal at a disadvantage they spent the entire contest trying to overcome. Facing an Unai Emery side, renowned for employing a bold, high defensive line, a tactic that can be either suffocating or suicidal, Arteta's team selection was curiously passive. The attacking trio of Gabriel Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, and Bukayo Saka, while talented, is a front three that predominantly wants the ball to feet, preferring intricate combinations in front of defences. Against Villa's high line, the glaring omission was a player with the instinct and sheer pace to consistently run in behind, to ask those penetrating questions that forced defenders to turn and panic. By not starting a Martinelli, who was on the bench, or the direct threat of a Rises Nelson, Arsenal's attack in the first half became predictable. For all their possession and patient build-up from the back, there was a stark absence of vertical threat. The right side had the individual magic of soccer, but elsewhere, Arsenal struggled to sustain any penetrating pressure because the profile of the attack was too slow, too methodical. This allowed Aston Villa to hold their line with confidence, compressing the space and turning the game into a chaotic, transitional battle. A style that suited the home side, far more than the controlled dominance Arsenal usually seek. This leads directly into the second lesson. The palpable absence of defensive control and authority. The match devolved into a frantic, end-to-end basketball game, which is the antithesis of how this Arsenal team has built its success. A defence that had set an English football record by not conceding more than 2 goals in 108 consecutive games suddenly looked vulnerable and shaky. The core of this instability was the missing partnership of Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba. Starting Jakub Kiwior and the admirable but out-of-position Jerry Timber at centre-back. The 6 different central defensive partnership used this season meant Arsenal lacked their usual commanding presence. You could sense the uncertainty. Time and again, Aston Villa sliced through the heart of the midfield and defence with alarming ease, something almost unthinkable with the first-choice pairing present. The statistics grimly underscore this loss of control. Aston Villa ended the game with a higher expected goals, XG figure, and for the first time since the opening day of the season, Arsenal lost the XG battle. The most damning single moment was Ali Watkins' first half miss, a chance rated at 0.605 XG, the most dangerous shot Arsenal had allowed all season. It was a stark warning of the chaos that had infiltrated a usually impervious unit, a warning that ultimately went unheeded until Bailey's late winner. The third lesson involves the long-awaited creative double act and its mixed returns. The return of Captain Martin Odegaard, slotting in as the number 10 with Kai Havertz operating from the left, was a scenario many fans had envisioned to unlock stubborn defences. In theory, having 2 creative chiefs operating in close quarters should generate a torrent of chance. The reality, however, was a performance of 2 distinct halves that highlighted Odegaard's current cycle of form and fitness. The first saw him fall into a familiar pattern, receiving plenty of touches, but often in deep areas, and struggling to impart his usual incisive punch in the final third. The play was slow, the passes safe, and the attacking edge was dull. The second half, however, provided encouraging glimpses of the Odegaard Arsenal have missed. He showed more aggressive intent, attempting more forward passes, and looking to dictate play in advanced areas. While he faded as the game wore on, understandable for a player making just his 6th league start of the season after injury, the overall balance of his performance contained promising signs of a return to his influential best. This fluctuation, however, placed an immense burden on the one midfielder who consistently met the moment, Declan Rice. He was the undeniable standout, the engine room and defensive shield, all in one. His crucial first half block to deny Matty Cash, alongside a staggering tally of recoveries, clearances and interceptions, was the only thing holding a fractured structure together at times. In games where Arsenal's control slips, Rice has consistently been the non-negotiable constant, a pillar of resilience the entire game plan now leans upon. This brings us to the fourth and perhaps most persistent lesson, the ongoing centre-forward dilemma. Arteta's decision to start Gabriel Jesus in good form with recent goals and assists over the fit-again Eddie Nketiah was understandable on paper. Yet, against Villa's high line, Jesus' profile as a false nine who craves involvement in build-up play ultimately exacerbated the attack's lack of pace. He struggled immensely, registering a negligible number of touches and failing to record a single shot. His inability to threaten the space behind rendered Arsenal's attack one-dimensional. Arteta recognised this at halftime, hooking Jesus just as he did with the ineffective Havertz. The introduction of Eddie Nketiah, however, failed to provide the needed solution. His cameo was also anonymous, marked by few touches and a recurring tendency to lose physical duels and balance. The Stark moment came late when a delicious Declan Rice cross flashed across the 6-yard box and Nketiah, caught on his heels, was a fraction away from a tap-in. It encapsulated the issue. Whether it's Jesus' link-up without penetration or Nketiah's erratic box presence, neither has staked a definitive claim. With reports suggesting a fit again, Havertz may soon be considered the primary option. It's clear this position remains the squad's most unresolved puzzle. A uncomfortable question that must be answered for a title, challenge to hold credibility. The fifth and final lesson is one of perspective. This defeat is a cause for annoyance, not yet for profound concern. The form guide shows Arsenal have taken only 2 points from the last 9 available away from home. Conceding a last-minute equaliser to a 10-man Chelsea, and now a last-minute winner to Villa points to a concerning lapse in game management and concentration in crunch moments. With Manchester City closing the gap, old anxieties from previous title races naturally surface. However, context is vital. This performance, and indeed this dip, coincided with the absence of multiple foundational pillars, Saliba, Gabriel, and the injured Thomas Partey. Football is a game of margins, and losing players of that calibre, particularly a defensive axis as transformative as Saliba and Gabriel, will disrupt any team's rhythm and control. Arteta himself pointed to the incredible consistency shown amid this injury crisis. The challenge now is not to panic, but to rectify. The upcoming fixture list presents a string of winnable games. The return of key defenders will restore the defensive solidity. That is this team's bedrock. The task is to channel the pain of this last-minute dagger, as Arteta urged, into a renewed focus. Title races are marathons decided by the ability to respond to setbacks. This defeat at Villa Park was a painful stumble, but the path ahead remains firmly under Arsenal's feet, provided they relearn these lessons quickly.